Right, we're turning our attention to athletics. I'm delighted to say Martin Hoare, who is an ambassador for the Irish Life Dublin Marathon and the Irish Life Dublin Race Series, is with us. The hugely popular race series runs through the summer and includes a 5 mile, 10k, 10 mile and a half marathon. You can enter at irishlifedublinmarathon.ie. Martin, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very well.
Did you run in today?
No, thankfully I got the train. So run home, hopefully.
You do normally run into town 2-3 times a week?
Yeah, generally do, to be honest. It's a nice way. So I've bit of background. I've 2 young kids at home, a fairly hectic work life as well. So anywhere I can get the training in, I can.
And so you work in
Ballsbridge.
In Ballsbridge, and you live in Kildare. Where's your nearest train station?
Hazelhatch.
Okay, so the train would take how long to get in?
I'm a train conductor now. About an hour 20.
Right.
I'm
Okay.
gonna say.
All right.
And it'll take me about an hour 25, an hour 30 maybe to get in.
To run.
Yeah.
Right. So it's actually just as quick.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I'm not going to disparage Irish Rail, but any delays with Irish Rail, I'll beat it. Right.
Right. Okay. So, when did your running career start properly? When did you kind of think, okay, I'm going to be fairly serious about this?
Fairly serious. So I dabbled a bit for a number of years. So look, to be honest, I played football for a long time from my youth, and to be honest, I kind of took a step change with work. Didn't really have the time for it to commit
to football.
To football, yeah.
At club level.
Well, Kildare is fairly competitive now.
Yeah, but it's really interesting to hear that there's a pressure on club players to a point where they can't commit to it.
Well, you have to look at the flexibility, and working in Dublin with a long commute, to be honest, is a big game changer. So, to be honest, it was an easy decision for me, and to be honest, I had a passion for kind of running, and I started dabbling in running from, I'd say, about 2010.
Right.
But I would say really kind of taking it quite seriously. I know when Brendan Hackett came on as my coach in about 2017, I kind of took a step up on that. Then had 2 years of stress fractures, which was quite interesting, but I learned a lot in it. So I learned a lot about myself and about how to manage training and load and everything during that time.
So,
a lot there.
How did the stress fractures happen?
To be honest, it was just poor training. So I had to learn really how to train properly. So going from where I was as quite an amateur runner, to learning how to actually take the load and to train. It's kind of like building blocks and getting my body able for to be strong enough to hold it. To be honest, it takes a bit of time and a lot of learning, if I'm honest.
I'm just interested now, and we haven't thought about this that much, but the difference between how we train in amateur sports, our amateur soccer players, our amateur rugby players, our amateur GA players, and now you as an athlete who's winning marathons, is there an easy lesson that everybody could learn if you were to go back and tap yourself on the shoulder as a 15, 16-year-old in Maynooth and go, might train a little bit differently here, how about we try this?
Look, to be honest, I think it's across every sport. It's not just a way of training. The nutrition has changed. Everything has changed. So the nutrition, your strength and conditioning, your core work has changed. And just like when it comes to running load management. So if you're in a field sport, I'm surrounded by kind of jerseys here, but the field sports are a lot easier on your body because it's on grass. It's far more cushioning there. It's only in the last few years that we've probably had the same kind of level playing field with the new runners coming into running. That kind of gives us the same sort of ability to recover. So like as a 15, 16-year-old, I'm kind of tapping that guy on the shoulder and saying, get on the track and get out running quicker. Nice. Because that's probably what I was better able to do personally. I've probably lost a few years I wouldn't say lost a few years, it's probably a wrong thing to say because I hugely enjoyed it, but I probably would have loved to have done it a bit earlier.
Do you think there's loads of people like that, like you, who are kind of, we have an untapped potential when it comes to athletics because people end up playing field sports and really enjoying it, as you say, but that actually there is some kind of unearthed gems?
To be honest, the easy answer is yes, right? So athletics is like this huge potential, and if you look at kind of what our history was, so some of the people like Tracy, like Coughlin, like the history we have in athletics in Ireland is so big, and it's huge, and some of this, like just the general standard of running back then at a club level was so much stronger and in depth than it is now. And to be honest, you kind of see, I think the tide's coming back, because I think athletics is becoming far more popular again. I think it's becoming far, like, the flexibility and kind of just how people approach it is changing. And like, you'll see it, to be honest, in this year's Irish Life Dublin Marathon, that they're promoting kind of bringing more women back into the long distance events, and to be honest, they have a whole range of kind of promotions to kind of get that female participation up. And to be honest, that's the way it is. It's to get people more involved in the sport, and just to do it really, than to actually step back. And
are you at peak age for a marathon, or what is the peak age for a marathon? Is that the $1 million question, or does it differ from person to person?
I hope I'm not yet. But no, there's a lot of different things. So peak age is probably late 30s, which, to be honest, I turned 36. So so I'm probably in around where I should be. But with the way things are changing, I think it's getting younger and younger for a marathon. I suppose everyone's different, right? And as I said, I only really got into competitive, like the topper end, probably in 2017. So I was quite late to it, and I didn't have, or I wouldn't have had the same, I suppose, track background a lot of people have.
Yeah.
So where you'd be quite specialised at, maybe some people might have been 3,000, 5,000 metres. I never, to be honest, I barely hopped onto a track in my life.
Right.
Only in the last few years I've started doing it to get speed. But to be honest, I was a footballer, and to be honest, I did that instead. So it depends on your background. If you were a very strong athletics background, what I'd say is you come to the marathon a lot earlier, and you'll be a lot stronger at it. But other people like me, it probably takes a bit more time to build the strength. Did
it help having someone like Brendan Hackett? Like, Brendan Hackett will be a name familiar to a lot of people in GAA circles in terms of inter-county management and club management as well. Did it help having him on board, because he understands your background as a GAA player as well, but you know, his athletics, I guess, knowledge is second to none as well.
Yeah. To be honest, he's a gem of a man. To be honest, he was the CEO of Athletics Ireland back in 2000. So he kind of transcends both athletics and GAA very, very strongly. He's huge. So sports psychology, I was only telling a story. He plays a lot of mind games, which I never thought I needed a sports psychologist, but I don't think he actually does it with me, but he probably does. Like, when I was going into...
You just don't know it.
Yeah, you just don't know, and indirectly it feeds in. But some of the things he's told me over the years, like, have paid huge dividends in terms of racing. So I was telling a story recently about how in the build-up for the Irish Life Marathon, Dublin Marathon last year, he told me just basically, and he was right, I was in great form. We'd never talked about winning the national title. That was never even considered, wasn't even a pipe dream.
So pressure was off.
There was no pressure. I went into it just kind of, let's enjoy this. And my aim was really to be with the front pack at 3 miles. So going into Phoenix Park, I said, if I'm at that front pack, brilliant. That's where I want to be, and that was an achievement for me. But he turned around to me before, and he actually went on holidays the week of the race, so he wasn't even around. But he told me basically, look, you're in great form. Whatever will be. There's nothing can hold you back. You could run 2:10, 2:15, whatever. You could run 2:25. You could win. You could not win. Just don't hold yourself back, and don't have any limits on what you can achieve. And I remember going up Chesterfield last October and kind of remembering that. And the group, we split into two groups at the time.
How close to the end of Chesterfield, sorry?
It's only about 3 miles in.
Okay,
so
sorry.
This is very early.
Okay,
but it broke into two groups, and I got dropped into the second, and I kind of said, they'll come back. And they came back within, I'd say, about a kilometre.
Right.
And able to work my way through the field.
So being calm in the moment of crisis.
Pretty much, yeah.
Right, that's really interesting.
But yeah, like he brings a lot from other sports into it, from a sports psychology perspective. It does make you wouldn't think running needs all the sports psychology that you would maybe for other team sports. But it's the same thing, because you're out on your own.
More.
You panic. You're kind of on your own for, like, in a marathon, 2.5 hours.
At least in a team sport, somebody can catch you by the shoulder and say, "What are you doing?" You know. But there's, like, it's you talking to yourself.
Yeah.
For 26 miles, 385 yards. So, did you know you'd won the national title when you crossed the finish line? Like, had you marked everybody along the way going?
Yeah, so we were quite lucky. So in the national title race. So they'll have 3 cyclists, 3 marshals, 1 with each first, second, and third.
Okay.
So we were in the group going through Crumlin, and there was about 6 of us, and I was kind of thinking maybe top 5 here. But as people fell off and kind of dominoes fell, got into third cyclist, then I got to the second, and then I got to the first in and around UCD. So that's about in about 6 miles to go. So I knew I was in first, and funny, I was kind of petrified, kind of thinking about what am I going to do in the national here with 6 miles to go, 10k. And the cyclist was telling me there's no one behind you, so just calm down, run slower.
Right.
I don't know who he had the money on, but it wasn't me.
Run slower.
And to be honest, I saw my wife at UCD or at RTE, and to be honest, she hit the roof. So it was quite emotional.
Okay, wow.
To get in from there.
Okay, so you see her from far away. You have a moment.
Yeah.
Wow, that's mad.
Yeah, I was going to stop, but then I think she would have killed me.
When does the psychology kick in? Because it's easy to be, in that leading pack after. Well, not easy. But if you're in the leading pack after 3 miles, it's easier psychologically to process that. But if you know you're in first place nationally with 6 miles left, surely then the psychology starts kicking in. Do any doubts start kicking in? And you're like, Jesus, I'm actually going to win here.
To be honest, I knew I could win from there. The only risk I had, or the only concern, I thought my calf was going to pop.
Right.
So you're kind of running, going, and the more people are saying slow down, I was like, I'm not changing my stride. I'm not changing anything here. I'm just going to run pretty much exactly as you're going to go, right? So, like from a psychology perspective, look, the Dublin Marathon, the Irish Life Dublin Marathon, it's known as a friendly marathon. The crowds are 3 deep, and when you're winning it, to be honest, hopefully I get to experience it again. But when you're winning it, it's insane. Like the noise level, the crowds, probably like being in the Aviva, to be honest, this weekend. Like it's quite hard to take in, and you don't really take it in. So that last 6 miles, it was a blur of noise, familiar faces, and probably the cyclist in front of me having a little chat with me or whatever it is. But like it was just a big blur to get through. Like
the mad thing about it is that amateurs can have the same buzz from the crowds as well, like, because they obviously come out not just to see the elite athletes. A lot of the people stay there, and a lot of people will have that moment with their families as well. It was one of the things that we found over the years doing the triathlons, is that there's an incredible community of people, and while you're completely singular as you in the race, you're actually part of this massive continuum all the way back to the great Irish athletes, but also part of it seems like a big movement of people who are back out on the roads racing and running, and I think that you're right. It feels like athletics is having a moment, particularly our young track athletes who are kind of just blitzing the world stage at the moment and such great ambassadors. With that in mind, what's your ambition over the next 18 months as somebody who's won a national title at marathon? Have you a plan? Have you a dream?
A Paris dream, is it? To be honest, I don't. If I'm honest, I probably haven't really thought too much about it. So look, I've incredibly difficult, or like I've a busy job life. I've two small children, another one due in August, so a third child as well. So to be honest, there's a lot going on.
We've a few Dadcast episodes which can help you out with that. But there's one in specific that I might refer you to afterwards. But anyway,
is it to do with 3 kids and a marathon runner? Is it?
Yeah.
But no, to be honest, my ambition over, to be honest, 12 months, 18 months, it's just to get faster and to enjoy it. So this year I went to Rotterdam, got a personal best, as they call it. So
2 hours 18:57.
Yeah, so broke that 2:20 barrier, which I've been trying to do for, I would say, 10 years. So that was a huge, this is the sort of thing, it's a huge achievement personally for me, and to be honest, my family, and the support I get from them. So my ambition is to keep improving and just to keep enjoying it. Paris, to be honest, I think there's going to be a very, very strong Irish contingent there. I hope there is. And I think there's going to be the national title race this year, with the way qualification for Paris and the Olympics is now in marathon running.
How does it work?
So basically they split it. So 2:08 is your time qualifier. So in the past it could have been 2:18, so it's 2:08 now. So they expect about 50% from that for the participants in the Olympics. But the other 50% is going to be points. So you can get points from your national title. So you get 50 points or whatever it is. So basically if you run a time, and the points will bring the time down. So at 2:11 now could be the equivalent of a 208,
Okay.
209, because you have those points difference from the
Make up-
national.
yeah, okay.
So all of a sudden your national title race in Ireland or France or wherever it is, hugely important. So it'll be a very interesting national title race, and to be honest, the Irish Life Dublin Marathon has buddied up with and partnered with the national title for a number of years now. So it happens in Dublin. It's the centre stage. October bank holiday weekend is, to be honest, for marathon running, it's the Christmas of our year. So everything's going to be. It's a very exciting year this year.
Will you do a marathon between now and then, like a competitive one?
Not a competitive one. I'm doing. I'm actually going to Kenya next month for a week. The firm I work with sponsor or support a charity for wildlife conservation in Kenya, and they about 10 people globally go over, or 15 go to run a marathon in, it's called Lewa, so it's at 6,000 feet and 35 degrees.
Right.
Nice
so
handy one for you. Yeah.
Not something I'd recommend anyone else to do, but to be honest, the opportunity came to go to a great player of the world and support a great cause. So I kind of said, yeah, of course I'll be there.
Okay.
So not a very competitive race, because I've never done altitude training or anything like that. So
There'll be a bit of pressure on you, though, I suspect. In that, like, we're just going for
it's in Kenya, and they're the world.
Company run.
They're the world marathon champions. So I don't know how much there will be.
certainly within the firm, anyway. And so there won't be any opportunity for you to pick up points other than at the national.
You know, so it was a brief summary again, but you can pick up points at world majors as well.
But from your perspective, this year,
no.
All right, okay. So there's a lot of eggs in the basket for this year's.
For a number of people, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And how many? When you said a big contingent, we have 3 marathon runners making the Olympics.
So I think the max that you can put in is 3.
Okay.
3 male and obviously female as well.
Okay, and so competition is fairly intense.
I think it will be, to be honest. I think a lot of people from kind of tracking and kind of seeing what's happening are keeping their, I would say, powder dry. They're definitely gearing up for a big push later in the summer. And the interesting thing with marathon running, and kind of going back to what we were saying about increasing female participation, the really interesting thing is some of our female athletes and marathon runners in particular are actually relatively much stronger than the male counterparts when it comes to racing.
Yeah.
So like when you look at the female team we send, like I think that'll be actually a far stronger team. I don't want to say far stronger, but like it will be relatively like generally we have had a lot more success with female runners and in athletics.
Well, I mean, I Katrina McKiernan's marathon exploits are obviously a massive target for everybody to try and reach. But like, if we ever have another Katrina McKiernan marathon, we'll be very lucky, and that'll be a superstar in the making. All right, so the advice to everybody is try and sign up for the marathon. I think there's going to be a lottery again this year, is there? Is that?
So the marathon is so the Irish Life Dublin Marathon, I think it's fully subscribed this year, but there is an opportunity for transfers happening in the summer. So that's something new this summer. But there's also the Irish Life Race Series. So that's kind of stepping up from 5 mile all the way through the summer to basically gear you up for the marathon later in the summer. So that kicks off the 18th of June in Corky Park. So that's the 5 mile and then into 10k, 10 mile and a half marathon. And to be honest, personally, probably going back to last year when you asked about it, like when I approached the Dublin Marathon last year, I actually felt I was very weak on hills. So I'm a Kildare man, very, very flat area, so there's not really much hills. And actually, the one thing myself and Brendan talked about was actually the race series, so the Irish Life Race Series, and using that as actually how to build up into the Dublin Marathon, because each of those races are actually quite like the Dublin Marathon. So a number of them take place in Phoenix Park. You can have a few drags in that and a few hills, and actually that gives you an awful lot of strength to actually tackle the full marathon in October.
What's going through your brain during that 2 hours 10 minutes? Do you know that a lot of people talk about running as freedom and their brain is nearly empty, but from your perspective, are you thinking about anything particular, or does your brain cross into strange territories? Or
in the marathon, probably not. In training runs, definitely. I'll think about the 10 emails I haven't sent or whatever else, like everyone else, and probably the bin that I never put out. But in the marathon, you're very much focused on nutrition and pacing.
Right.
So it probably
getting the gels in,
getting carbohydrates in as early as possible, and really getting that in. obviously water, and then just seeing where you are in the race and kind of pacing it on that. There's not really I'm not thinking about my holiday in the Dublin Marathon, if I'm honest, but like you definitely, like the freedom, like it's an incredible sport because the freedom, the mental health like benefits you get from running is just it's incredible. And like you do get to time, like I will more than likely not come home from a run. I'll probably run home tonight and I'll have 10 things in my head to do straight away that I have to prioritise. So like it's great.
Listen, thanks very much for joining us. Shane, did you run a marathon? Did we manage to get through this whole stop without you bringing it up? I mean, sorry, the whole point of running a marathon is that you tell everybody you ran a marathon.
Yeah. Probably in about twice the time this man ran it.
How many have you done?
I've only done one marathon.
All right.
Dublin 2015.
What's wrong with you?
I know, I'm mad to do the flat. Berlin's the flat one, isn't it?
Yep.
I'm mad to do Berlin because at least the ego will take a little bit of a boost maybe if I do proper training for it. So yeah, Ronnie Sullivan's got me back into the running buzz as well.
There you go.
He's mad for it. So
there you go. It's been a week of running on the show, and if you do manage to see a flash of blue when you're on the train from Hazelhatch into Dublin, bang on the side of the train and wish Martin all the best. Martin, thanks very much for joining us today, and we'll obviously keep an eye on the exploits across the rest of the season. It's 9:30.